Computer. All right, we're recording. Hello, everyone. This is our IPTS presentation, M Health Fairview proposal. We are Section A, Group 5A. My name is Alessio Beffa. I'm a medical student. I'm interested in going into pathology. I'm a third-year student. Alyssa Bowers is part of our group.
I'm Jessica DiAugustino. I'm a physical therapy student in my third year.
I am John Edstrom. I am a accelerated nursing student and I am in my 1 year.
I'm Emily Ellis, and I'm an OT student in my fifth and final year.
I'm Anastasia Kondratyuk. I'm on accelerated master nursing science, and this is my final year.
And I'm Jake Kwan. I'm a student over at the School of Medicine. I am in my third year, and currently my interests are in psychiatry.
So our objectives, we aim to define what radical belonging means in the context of interprofessional practice. We hope to explain recommendations for improving radical belonging at M Health Fairview at organizational, team, and individual levels. And finally, we're going to explore the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on radical belonging and our interventions.
Okay, so beginning with radical belonging, the concept of radical belonging, specifically referring to how it relates to healthcare, is more so how, as healthcare professionals, we view individuals in a society. So when we see a patient that comes in and they automatically are, say, extremely overweight, say 400, 500 pounds, our first initial thought is that individual is lazy, or they don't care about their own health, or it's their own fault that they are the way that they are, and they do not fit in societal norms. Specifically, this individual is, they're not worth my time because they don't fit into that category. Now, that's one extreme of the thought process. The next part of it is it can be challenging for that person to get adequate attention and care from healthcare providers and workers, specifically because the thought process is, oh my gosh, as a nurse, it's going to be so challenging for me to try to move this person in their bed. It's going to be so difficult for me to clean this patient. It's going to be so difficult for me to try to get an IV in this patient because they have so much adipose tissue. There's no way I'm going to be able to get any type of vessel. I'm going to need to send this person down to vascular so they can do a central line on this patient because I'm not going to be able to get a vessel. That same thought process automatically puts that patient at a disadvantage because we automatically are thinking negatively towards that person. And a similar thought process can occur when we think about the way we automatically react to a certain situation. If we are in a situation where we hear a gunshot, our adrenaline starts pumping, we get, tenses up, we are getting ready to run, and we're reacting to that stimuli. It's a similar concept of radical belonging in that we automatically respond to that person, to that patient, to that individual with not the same intensity, but we're responding to that person with an automatic reaction. And the goal of radical belonging and the concept of radical belonging is that we want to try to convert the way we think towards a specific individual. So instead of we realize, oh my gosh, I just reacted that this patient has, tattoos all over their face. I am automatically going to think a very particular way about this person. We take a step back and go, oh, okay, I just reacted that way. Let me reset the way my mind is thinking about this person and treat them as an individual and not in any other shape or form, so that it does not negatively impact the care that we provide to this patient. And that's really what radically belonging means, and what it entails is that, you know, there are certain people that they're unattractive as far as societal norms. There's individuals that we feel do not fit the mold as far as we are concerned with the pillar of health, whether it's smoking, whether it's doing drugs, whether it's whatever those concepts are. And so the idea is that we need to try to radically allow them to belong to that patient subset, and that they are just as important of a person as the 20-something-year-old athlete who's a star student as well, that comes into the hospital. We need to treat that same individual with that same respect and concern and devotion as we would to that other person who's a 500-pound African American female who can barely get out of bed. And that really truly is what the concept of radical belonging is. That's it.
So I'm going to talk about the importance of belonging within a healthcare team. So healthcare is a diverse field, and there's no one person that can know everything there is to know when it comes to helping our patients get better and reach their goals. Each and every member of the healthcare team is critical to helping our patients in the best way possible, and each individual comes to the team with knowledge, expertise, personalities, and their own relationship with the patient. Each individual in that team needs to feel valued and as though they can express their thoughts, and they need to feel as though they belong. So despite what you may think about anyone in your team, it really is important that everyone feels like they can be heard and they are accepted. Creating a culture that is diverse and where people feel this way is imperative to teamwork, and as a result, improves our patient experiences and outcomes. And then in terms of patients, you have to treat every single patient as the unique individual they are with their own story, and they deserve the best care possible, which is what we have to provide. But first, we have to have those feelings of belonging within our own team.
So for our proposal, we're making a number of recommendations at the organizational, team, and individual levels. The goals that we have for our recommendations are to support belonging, morale, and retention among the staff members at M Health Fairview. And we also want to recruit new employees to decrease the impact of the existing loss of employees as a result of the COVID pandemic. So some of the recommendations on an organizational level that we've made are that we need a task force or committee within the hospital to implement our set of recommendations. And these include creating a program that offers training on diversity, equity, and inclusion to employees and facilitates reflection of any biases that people have. It also includes updating the hospital and organization handbook to reflect shared values and diversity and inclusion policies. And the task force will also help recruit new employees through marketing and any means that they can to bring in new people because of that loss. We also want to hire an HR officer that would oversee diversity training for all employees, starting with training individuals that are in management positions. We also want to update the hospital and organization handbook to reflect these values. And finally, we want to address burnout and work-related stress among the members of the team. So we want to create some sort of mental health program to support the wellness of the employees and increase counseling services to cope with added stressors from the COVID pandemic. So on a team level, the team leaders, the department heads and supervisors, they should be responsible for ensuring that all employees are creating a welcoming and inclusive environment for all of their coworkers. Leaders should also educate members of the team about acknowledging biases, microaggressions, and ways to support cultural and spiritual diversity among their coworkers. At the end of the day, the emphasis should be that all stakeholders in healthcare value achieving the best possible patient outcomes. On an individual level, we would like to implement an anonymous survey for employees to voice their thoughts on how they currently feel supported at the hospital, as well as areas that the hospital could improve. Individual employees should feel as though their voices are heard and that their values are reflected by the organization as well as shared among their coworkers. The secondary focus should be attracting new employees to the hospital, as we talked about earlier. So now we're getting into how COVID impacts the interventions that we are recommending. So many healthcare professionals have left their profession since the COVID-19 pandemic, largely due to personal or occupational stressors. So our aim is to retain current employees and recruit new ones to combat this problem. Our recommendations for policy change seek to better support employees of all backgrounds and ensure that all voices are heard, it's especially important when transitioning to a post-pandemic world in the coming years.
Okay. The implementation steps that we take to turn our strategic plan into the actions that help us accomplish our goals to objectives. Having goals complement our day-to-day priorities can significantly benefit our long-term professionals' objectives. Difference between long and short-term goals lies in time frame and flexibility, where long-term goals take years while short-term should be achieved in under a year. When setting short-term goals, we want to assume that we are setting reasonable expectations, while long-term goals are often more aspirational. To reach our objectives, we have developed the following implementation steps. The first long-term goal would be to build Just Culture employee leader platform with human resources. So Just Culture refers to a system of shared accountability in which organizations are accountable for the systems they have designed and for responding to the behaviors of their employees and fair and just manner. The second long-term goals would be developing of feedback loops between HR and healthcare workers. The third long-term goal would be to reduce healthcare disparities in quality healthcare outcomes, vaccination rates, other preventative screening across various populations. The first short-term goal would be to set up the system to collect and review behavioral complaints using a Just Culture approach, including the assessment of bias and burnout. The second short-term goal would be to create restorative employee relations processes that emphasize learning and support. The third short-term goal would be COVID-19 vaccination disparity strategy using pop-up clinic model.
So ultimately, our goal is to foster an ethos of radical belonging in the work environment. And as we've seen here, the loss of this sense among many employees have led to increased rate of burnouts, more workers resigning from their line of work, which ultimately is impacting patient outcomes. And all of these are metrics or outcomes that we strive to address. As we've alluded through this presentation, emphasizing system level changes, as we proposed earlier, having the HR stress and deliver classes and seminars on diversity, inclusion, and expanding our mental health services, among others, are really our proposed systems-based solutions to foster this sort of environment. So the first metric of success that we have outlined here is improved employee satisfaction with work environment. It goes without saying that the sense of belonging is a very subjective experience. Ultimately, it comes down to the individual, how they feel they are participating, how they are perceived, and how they feel they are belonging and partaking in this group effort. And so we seek to gauge what that experience is like by means of periodic and longitudinal surveys that would allow employees to score or address the following: diversity, equity, and inclusion. One of the things we had in mind was including scales, 5-point or 10-point scales in these surveys to kind of gauge where the employee kind of evaluates how well the environment, their work environment is fostering these principles. Other measures include fair and just work practices, responsiveness of administration to employee concerns. So not only are we letting employees know that we're out there for them, but that we're actually enacting solutions to problems that they identify. And lastly, subjective symptoms of burnout that they report, like depression, fatigue, and apathy. And again, these are surveys that we use to track longitudinally improvement over time. So once we enact these systems-based solutions, that we would hope to see favorable metrics and scorings over time. The other metrics we have here is rise and maintenance of employment, especially in this time of COVID. Burnouts are at an all-time high, and we have increasing rates of resignations related to burnout, dissatisfaction, and work environment. And so one of the metrics that we have to quantify success is maintenance or an increase in employment of our facility over a longitudinal course. And another way we would quantify that is seeing a decrease in the rate of resignations on account of burnouts, dissatisfaction with the work environment, or COVID-related concerns. And lastly, we wanted to include patient health outcomes because ultimately we are enacting all of these changes so that we can see improvement in patient health outcomes. So that includes reduction in adverse patient events on account of, for example, staff shortage.
So using those implementation steps and metrics of measuring, we would exercise several PDSA, Plan, Do, Study, Act cycles. And throughout that process, we would be trying to get the information out there. This is all in an effort to expand the impact of this work past mHealth Fairview. By getting the information out there, we would be reviewing the outcome measures that Jake just listed, and we would show ways to further improve the metrics and constantly be publishing the results, publicizing it so that other hospitals are also aware of the projects. One of the journals, there's several of them, but the Journal of Healthcare Management would be an option. Basically just trying to increase publicity in regards to this. The second thing that we would do is take it a step further and actually seek out specific hospitals that could benefit from implementing this kind of a procedure. We would develop an assessment for an organization to use if they are suffering from similar issues, including a lack of a sense of belonging, team morale, burnout, or a lack of employee support. This assessment could be used by organizations that are either not meeting metrics that it would like to, or maybe they're meeting metrics already, but they would like to maintain a good working environment. Just like Jake said, the end goal is always patient care. And so that would be at the forefront of this project. The other two things we would do, once we've identified organizations that we think could benefit it, we would generate a standard operating procedure using what we learned from our project and the metrics that we measured, and we would distribute it to them. We would make sure that the procedure was adaptable and generalized enough that it could be used not just at mHealth Fairview, but at whatever specific hospital we're targeting. And then after that, we would break out from just hospitals and go to pharmacies or outpatient clinics, other places that might have a different organizational structure, but could still benefit from a lot of these processes. Everything we discussed is pretty applicable regardless of how your organization is structured. And then just one more point, that COVID highlighted a lot of the weak points of the medical system at M Health Fairview. However, they were present before then. So even when COVID settles, we still need to continue to implement all of these steps to continue to have a good sense of radical belonging in the organization. These are the references we use for our presentation. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please email the group. Thank you.